crystal vase shattered against the marble floor, missing Elena's head by inches. "I said I don't want flowers in here." Damien Cross didn't even look up from his laptop, his voice as cold as the December wind battering against the penthouse windows. Elena Rodriguez stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. In 5 years of being a home care nurse, no one had ever thrown something at her. She stared at the shattered glass, then at the man who'd thrown it, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her medical bag. "Mr. Cross, I was only trying to—" "I don't care what you were trying to do. Just give me the medication and leave me alone." Elena took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain professional. She'd been warned. The agency had told her that Damien Cross was difficult, that 3 nurses had already quit in 2 weeks, but the pay was triple her usual rate. She needed this job. Her student loans weren't going to pay themselves. She crossed the massive living room, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor, and set down the pill organizer on his desk. Up close, she could see the exhaustion etched into his face, the way his jaw clenched with pain he refused to acknowledge. The car accident had broken his leg and 3 ribs, but you'd never know it from the way he pushed himself. "You're supposed to take these with food," Elena said quietly, maintaining her composure. "I'll eat when I'm done working." "The doctor said—" "I don't care what the doctor said." Damien finally looked at her, his grey eyes sharp and dismissive. "You're here to follow my instructions, not give them. Are we clear?" Elena felt heat rising in her cheeks. She wanted to walk out, to tell him exactly where he could shove his triple pay rate, but something stopped her. Maybe it was the way his hand shook slightly as he reached for his coffee, or the prescription pain medication sitting untouched beside his keyboard. This wasn't just rudeness. This was someone in pain, refusing help. "Crystal clear, Mr. Cross," she said, her voice steady. "I'll be in the kitchen if you need anything." She turned and walked away, her spine straight, refusing to let him see how much his coldness had rattled her. Behind her, she heard him mutter something under his breath, but she didn't look back. The kitchen was a chef's dream, all granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that looked like they'd never been used. Elena pulled out her phone and texted her roommate Sarah. "Day 1 and he literally threw a vase at me. This is going to be a long 6 weeks." Sarah's reply came instantly. "Get out of there! That's assault!" Elena almost laughed. Sarah always jumped to the extreme. "He threw it at the floor, not at me. He's just difficult." "Difficult? Girl, he sounds psychotic." Elena glanced toward the living room, where she could hear Damien's voice, sharp and commanding, as he took yet another business call. She'd Googled him before accepting the job. Damien Cross, 35, self-made investment banker worth over $200 million. Known for his ruthless business tactics and ice-cold negotiations. The articles painted him as a man without mercy, someone who'd built his empire by crushing everyone in his path. But the articles hadn't mentioned the child's drawing she'd glimpsed in his desk drawer when she'd set down the medication. A crayon sketch of a sunshine and flowers, signed "Love Sophie" in wobbly letters. Who was Sophie? 3 hours later, Elena returned to check on him. Damien was still at his desk, the medication untouched, his face pale and drawn. His laptop screen showed a conference call with at least a dozen people, all looking nervous as he tore apart their quarterly projections. "These numbers are unacceptable," Damien said, his voice cutting through their explanations like a knife. "I don't want excuses, I want results. Henderson, you're done. Pack your office. Martinez, you have 1 week to turn this around or you're next." Elena watched a middle-aged man on the screen go pale, stammering something about having a family, needing this job. Damien ended the call without another word. "That was cruel," Elena said before she could stop herself. Damien's head snapped toward her, his eyes narrowing. "Excuse me? That man you just fired, He was begging. You didn't even listen. You think you understand my business? Damien's laugh was harsh, bitter. Henderson has been underperforming for months. I gave him chances. He failed. That's how the world works, Miss Rodriguez. There's no room for weakness. He's a person, not a number on a spreadsheet. He's an employee who failed to do his job, and you're an employee who's overstepping her boundaries. Damien closed his laptop with a sharp click. I don't pay you to judge my business decisions. I pay you to hand me pills and stay out of my way. Elena felt her temper flare. You know what? Those pills you refuse to take, they're sitting right there, untouched. You're in pain. I can see it every time you move, but you're too stubborn or too proud to admit you need help. I don't need help. I need competence, something you're failing to provide. What you need is to stop being such a... Elena caught herself, biting back the insult. She was a professional. She wouldn't stoop to his level. You know what, Mr. Cross? Take your medication or don't. It's your recovery you're sabotaging. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. My previous nurse quit because she cried every time I raised my voice. The one before that tried to mother me. The one before that stole from me. Damien's voice was flat, emotionless. Which one are you going to be? Elena turned back, meeting his cold gaze with her own steady one. I'm going to be the one who does her job, Mr. Cross. Whether you make it easy or hard is up to you. Elena walked out, her heart pounding, wondering if she'd just talked herself out of a paycheck she desperately needed. But the next morning, when she arrived at the penthouse, Damien was still there, still employing her. He didn't mention their argument. He simply handed her a list of his daily requirements and returned to his laptop, as if she didn't exist. The pattern continued for a week. Damien worked 18-hour days, barely eating, refusing pain medication, and treating Elena like an inconvenient piece of furniture. She kept her interactions brief and professional, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her frustration. But she noticed things. Small things that didn't fit the heartless tyrant narrative. On Tuesday, she saw him on a call with someone, his voice soft, almost gentle. No, Sophie, I can't come today. I know, I miss you too. Yes, I promise, next week for sure. When he noticed Elena in the doorway, his expression hardened instantly, and he ended the call. On Wednesday, she found a rejection letter in his trash from a children's charity. But beneath it was a personal check he'd written to them anyway, for $50,000. On Thursday, she overheard another firing, but this time, she listened more carefully to the entire conversation. Mr. Peterson, your performance has been declining for months. I'm letting you go, effective immediately. However, you'll receive a full year's severance package and my personal recommendation for positions at 3 different firms. Your health insurance will continue for 18 months. I wish you the best. The man had thanked him profusely, almost in tears with relief. Damien had simply hung up, his face expressionless. Nothing made sense. Was he heartless or not? Cruel or kind? Elena couldn't figure him out, and it was driving her crazy. Friday afternoon, everything changed. Elena was organizing the medication cabinet when she heard a crash from the living room, followed by a sharp intake of breath. She rushed in to find Damien on the floor beside his overturned chair, his face twisted in agony, his hand pressed against his ribs. Mr. Cross. Elena dropped to her knees beside him. Don't move. What happened? Stood up too fast. He gritted out, his breathing shallow. I'm fine. You're not fine. You could have re-broken a rib. Her hands moved professionally, checking for obvious injuries. We need to get you to the couch. Can you move your legs? I said I'm fine. But when he tried to push himself up, he gasped in pain and fell back. Stop being stubborn and let me help you, Elena said firmly. She positioned herself beside him, slipping her arm around his back. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Together, they managed to get him onto the couch. His breathing was ragged, sweat beading on his forehead. Elena grabbed the blood pressure cuff and stethoscope from her bag. "What are you doing?" Damien tried to push her hands away, but he was too weak. "My job. Now shut up and let me work." For the first time since she'd met him, Damien actually listened. His blood pressure was elevated, his pulse racing. Elena checked his ribs carefully, relieved to find no obvious new damage, but the old injuries were clearly causing significant pain. "You need to take the pain medication," she said, already reaching for it. "This isn't about being tough, Mr. Cross. This is about healing properly." "I don't like how it makes me feel. Foggy, out of control." There was something in his voice, a vulnerability she'd never heard before. Elena paused, really looking at him. Without the armor of anger and coldness, he looked younger, almost lost. "Being in pain isn't control," she said gently. "It's just suffering, and suffering doesn't make you stronger. It just makes you hurt." Damien stared at her for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in his grey eyes. Finally, he nodded once, a tiny surrender. Elena handed him the medication and a glass of water, watching as he swallowed the pills. "Thank you," he said quietly. Elena nearly dropped the glass. "Did you just thank me?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Don't get used to it." They sat in silence for a few minutes, Elena monitoring his vitals as the medication began to take effect. His breathing eased, the tension in his shoulders relaxing slightly. "Why do you do this job?" Damien asked suddenly. "Taking care of people like me, people who treat you like garbage." Elena considered the question. Because underneath the garbage treatment, there's usually someone who's hurting, someone who needs help but doesn't know how to ask for it. That's remarkably optimistic. Or remarkably naive, according to my roommate. Elena smiled. "She thinks I have a savior complex." "Do you?" "Maybe. Or maybe I just believe that everyone deserves compassion, even the ones who make it really hard to give it to them." Damien closed his eyes, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if some people don't deserve it?" "Everyone deserves it, Mr. Cross. Everyone." He didn't respond, but Elena saw his jaw clench, saw the way his hands gripped the couch cushion like he was holding onto something precious, or maybe letting something go. The medication pulled him into sleep within 20 minutes. Elena covered him with a blanket and returned to the kitchen, her mind racing. She'd seen past the walls just for a moment, and what she'd glimpsed had surprised her. There was pain there, deep, old pain that had nothing to do with broken bones. Her phone buzzed. "Sarah, how's the tyrant today?" Elena glanced towards the living room where Damien slept, looking less like a ruthless businessman and more like an exhausted man carrying too much weight. "Complicated," she typed back. "He's more complicated than I thought." That evening, when Damien woke, the walls were back up, but not quite as high. Over the next week, something shifted between them. Damien still wasn't warm, still wasn't easy, but the sharp edges dulled slightly. He started taking his medication regularly. He ate the meals Elena prepared, though he pretended it was only because she was annoyingly persistent. He even said please once, though he looked pained doing it. And Elena kept noticing things that didn't add up. The mysterious calls to Sophie continued every Tuesday and Thursday, always brief, always in that gentle voice that sounded nothing like the Damien Cross the world knew. The charitable donations she found evidence of in his recycling, the way he'd fire people but somehow they always landed on their feet with generous severance packages. Her curiosity became unbearable. On her day off, Elena did something she knew was wrong. She followed him. Damien had recovered enough to drive, though he still moved carefully. Elena watched from her car as he left his penthouse building, not in his usual town car with a driver, but in a regular sedan, wearing jeans and a baseball cap. She followed him across the city to St. Grace Children's Hospital. Her heart pounded as she parked and watched him enter through a side door, clearly familiar with the route. Elena waited 5 minutes, then followed, her conscience screaming at her even as her feet carried her forward. The pediatric wing was bright and cheerful, walls painted with murals of animals and rainbows. Elena spotted Damien through a window, sitting beside a hospital bed. The girl in the bed couldn't have been more than 9 years old, thin and pale, connected to an IV drip. But she was smiling, laughing at something Damien was saying. Elena's breath caught. This was Sophie. Damien was doing silly voices, reading from a picture book, completely transformed. The little girl reached out, and Damien took her hand gently, carefully, like she was made of glass. They talked for a while, Damien showing her drawings, Sophie showing him something on a tablet. The love between them was so obvious, so pure, that Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "Are you family?" A nurse appeared beside Elena, friendly but curious. No, I was just..." Elena fumbled for words. The nurse smiled. "You're looking at Mr. Cross, aren't you? He's amazing with Sophie. Been coming 3 times a week for 2 years now, ever since her parents died in that car accident. He pays for everything. Her treatment, her room, everything. Won't let us tell anyone. Says he just wants to help." Elena felt like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "He's been doing this for 2 years? Sophie has a rare form of leukemia, very expensive treatment. Mr. Cross found out about her case somehow and just took over. The doctors say the experimental treatment he's funding is working. She might actually beat this." The nurse's eyes were warm. "He pretends to be all business, but that man has the biggest heart I've ever seen." Elena couldn't speak. She watched Damien pull out art supplies, watched Sophie's face light up as they drew together. This was the real Damien Cross. Not the cold businessman, not the cruel boss. This. She left before he could see her, her mind reeling. But Damien saw her anyway. He was waiting outside her apartment that evening, leaning against his car, his expression unreadable. "You followed me," he said. Not a question. Elena's stomach dropped. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. I was trying to understand." "Understand what?" His voice was hard again, the walls rebuilt. You're cruel one moment and kind the next. You fire people but give them safety nets. You act like you don't care about anything, but you're spending your free time reading to a sick little girl. None of it makes sense. So you invaded my privacy. Yes, and I'm sorry. But Damien..." She used his first name without thinking. "Why do you hide this? Why act so heartless when you're clearly not?" "Don't," he said sharply. "Don't do that. Don't try to make me into something I'm not." "I'm not. I'm trying to see who you actually are." Damien laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to know who I am? I'm the 10-year-old kid who watched his little sister die because my parents couldn't afford the treatment. I'm the teenager who swore he'd never be powerless again. I'm the man who learned that caring about people in my world is a weakness others exploit." Elena's heart clenched. "Damien." "Sophie reminds me of Lily, my sister. She had the same smile, the same laugh." His voice cracked slightly. "I couldn't save Lily. I was just a kid. But I can save Sophie. I can afford the treatment. I can give her a chance." "That's beautiful. Why hide it?" "Because the moment people know you care, they use it against you." Damien's composure finally shattered. "I've seen good people destroyed in my industry because they showed compassion. I've watched careers end because someone revealed a weakness. So I built walls. I became the heartless bastard everyone expects. It's armor. It's a prison," Elena said softly. and you're locked inside it." Damien stared at her, something raw and vulnerable in his eyes. "I pushed you away because you scare me. You make me feel things. You make me want to let the walls down, and that terrifies me more than anything." Elena stepped closer. "You don't have to choose between success and compassion. You're proof that you can have both. You've been doing it all along." "Have I? Or have I just been good at hiding? Maybe it's time to stop hiding." 3 months later, Elena stood in Sophie's hospital room, watching the little girl play with new art supplies. Sophie was in remission, the experimental treatment working beyond anyone's hopes. Damien sat on the edge of the bed, helping her draw, his laughter genuine and free. He'd started the Lily Cross Foundation last month, no longer anonymous, using his resources to help families afford pediatric cancer treatment. The business world had been shocked. Some called him soft. His profits didn't care. Neither did Damien. Elena felt his hand slip into hers, warm and certain. He looked at her, really looked at her, without walls or armor. "Thank you," he said, "for being wrong about me. Or right, I'm still not sure which." Elena smiled. "I'm just glad I stayed long enough to find out." Sophie looked up at them, grinning. "Are you two going to kiss? That's what people do in movies when they're in love." Damien laughed, that genuine laugh Elena had worked so hard to earn. "What do you think?" he asked Elena. "Should we give the people what they want?" "I think," Elena said, "that the heartless Damien Cross is officially dead." "Good," he whispered, leaning closer. He was exhausting to maintain anyway. Their lips met as Sophie cheered in the background, and Elena realized that sometimes the coldest exteriors really do hide the warmest hearts. You just have to be brave enough to look. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Drop a comment below telling us about a time someone surprised you by being different than you expected. We read every single one, and your stories inspire our next videos. Until next time, remember that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness. Choose to look deeper. You might be surprised by what you find.